Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to be talking about installing a powered anode rod, and we'd like to thank Nikki Bonfiglio for liking and sharing the podcast. According to a study published in the Journal of Energy and Buildings, only about 5% of homeowners check their anode rod routinely, and over 40% didn't know that the anode rod should be checked and replaced when depleted to protect the water heater from corrosion and to extend its life.
Mom, what is an anode rod?
A standard anode rod for a water heater is a thin, solid metal wire that's covered with another material, like magnesium or aluminum. And the rod starts out 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and it's about 4 feet long. It has a 3/4 inch hex head that goes into a threaded hole on the top of the water heater.
Okay. How does a standard anode rod work?
So it's more reactive to water than the steel in the tank. When metal is in water, water is a solvent, pulling electrons off the metal and causing it to corrode, which is pretty wild. So the anode rod is satisfying the amount of electrons that the water needs, so very little or no electrons are taken from the tank, extending its life. And because a standard anode rod corrodes, all that material will eventually be stripped from the metal wire, so you need to routinely check the anode rod. When it's depleted, you have to replace it or your tank will start to corrode and it will shorten its life. The water heater company Reliance says when the diameter of an anode rod is less than 3/8 of an inch, or 1/3 or more of the top and the bottom of the wire is exposed, the anode rod needs to be replaced.
Okay. How often should you check the anode rod?
Reliance recommends after the first 6 months of replacing a water heater to flush the tank and check the anode rod, and then check the anode rod at least once a year.
How many people you think do that?
5%.
What is a powered anode rod?
It's a small, thin rod, usually about 12 inches long and made out of titanium. It's screwed into the opening for the anode rod, and it will have a power cord so it can be plugged into a standard outlet.
How does it work?
It produces a small electrical current in the water in the tank, preventing the metal of the tank from losing electrons and corroding. The electric current also helps reduce hard water deposits inside the tank. Because the titanium rod doesn't corrode in water, you don't have to check it for wear, and it keeps your tank cleaner because as a standard anode rod corrodes, it drops debris into the bottom of the tank.
Does it work with all types of water heaters?
Yeah, it'll work with gas, electric, solar, or hybrid water heaters with a tank.
How about well water?
Works with city water, well water, and softened water. And it's great for well water because the current neutralizes bacteria that causes the sulfur smell. And it doesn't interact with well water like a magnesium or aluminum rod, which can cause a sulfur smell.
Okay. We just installed a powered anode rod at my cousin's.
Yeah, turned out to be a great video on our Fix It Home Improvement channel. What's funny is last year we had replaced the original anode rod that came with her water heater, and it was completely depleted. So it was just a bare metal wire connected to the hex head.
Well, she replaced that water heater, I think, 5 years ago.
Okay.
Because she told me recently that the old water heater, the bottom just rotted out.
Right, sure.
Well, now I know why. It's because her water's so bad.
Yeah, she has well water, and she never checks the anode rod.
Well, who does?
Right, right. So we had replaced that, and we replaced it with a zinc aluminum anode rod because we thought that that would help with the sulfur smell.
Right.
But she was still complaining about the rotten egg smell from her water heater, so she bought a powered anode rod, and that's what we installed for her.
Right.
And she said that it made a big difference.
Within 24 hours, she said the rotten egg smell was gone.
Amazing.
And
huh?
she's been living in that house for 8 years, and it smelled like rotten eggs, her water, the whole time.
Right.
Even after she replaced the water heater. And the rotten egg smell was so bad when we were changing the anode rod, I had to leave the room because it was making me gag.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool when
So she loves the powered anode rod.
It's cool when something works and it does what it says it's going to do.
Yep. How long does a powered anode rod last?
From the articles I read, they said they'll last anywhere from 5 to 50 years. I would compare warranties when I'm shopping for a powered anode rod as a guide to the longevity.
How long are the warranties?
On models I looked at, I saw from 1 year to 20 years.
How much electric does it use?
Coro Protec says their powered anode rod uses about $1.36 worth of electric a year, and Fixodor says their powered anode rod uses about $3 of electric a year. So not a lot.
Do you need to plug the anode rod into a GFCI or a surge suppressor?
I spoke to Coro Protec, and they said a powered anode rod can be plugged into a standard outlet, a GFCI, or a surge suppressor.
Okay. How do you remove an old anode rod?
You want to find the hex head on top of the water heater. Some water heaters will have a round plastic cover over that hex head, which will have to be removed. There can also be insulation under the cap.
Okay.
You're going to need a 1 1/16 inch socket and a socket wrench. The anode rod is going to be difficult to remove the first time because it's tightened at the factory with an impact wrench.
Okay.
Turn off the water to the water heater. Turn off the gas or electric to the water heater, then open the hot side of a faucet and leave it open. Then you're going to open the drain valve on the bottom of the water heater and drain a couple of gallons of water. You want the water in the tank to be just below the top.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping the tank pretty full is going to help keep it in place when you're unscrewing the anode rod. And the first time you remove the original anode rod, you might need a helper too to hold the tank so it doesn't move. Use a 1 1/16 inch socket and a socket wrench to unscrew the anode rod counterclockwise. If it won't turn, you can slide a metal pipe over the handle of the socket wrench to increase your leverage. And that's what I had to do the first time we were at your cousin's and we checked her old anode rod.
Right, because you have chicken muscles.
Yeah. And we had to have your other cousin hold it while I was trying to unscrew that. And you can also use a 1/2 inch cordless impact wrench with a socket to remove the anode rod. When the hex head is unscrewed, you just pull out the old anode rod.
So when you're draining water from the tank, you need to have a bucket or a hose.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to have water all over the place.
Right. Right.
How do you install a powered anode rod?
Once the old anode rod is removed, check the threaded hole for debris on the threads, and you can use an old toothbrush to clean them off. Check what size the top of the powered anode rod is. Coro Protec has a hex head that requires a 1 3/16 inch socket or a 31 millimeter socket. A.O. Smith requires a 1 1/16 inch deep well socket, and Stoltco requires a 1 1/16 inch socket. Wrap plumber's PTFE tape clockwise 3 to 5 times around the male thread of the powered anode rod. When I spoke to Coro Protec, they said you can use PTFE plumber's tape or pipe thread compound on the male threads.
Okay.
Insert the powered anode rod into the opening and turn it clockwise until it's snug, and then use a socket wrench to tighten it down. There's going to be an electrical contact on the top, so don't drop the socket down onto that, and keep the socket slightly above it as you're turning it clockwise.
Okay.
And what's nice about this is the length is short. They're usually only around 12 inches long, so this is great for areas where you have limited space above the water heater.
Right.
The power cord will have one connector for grounding and one connector for the top of the anode rod. You're going to remove one screw from the top cover on the water heater and connect the ground wire to that. The other connector will be attached to the metal tab on top of the anode rod, and you'll use pliers to crimp the connector to the tab. Now you can turn on the water to the tank and wait until water is flowing out of that open hot faucet to be sure there's no air in the tank. Once water is flowing and there's no more air sound, you can turn off the faucet, then turn on the gas or electric to the water heater, plug in the power cord to the powered anode rod, and there should be an indicator light to show it's working.
Okay.
And those are the basic instructions, but check and follow the instructions on the model that you're installing.
What are some top-rated socket wrench set companies?
DeWalt, Craftsman, and Milwaukee.
A 1 1/16 socket won't be part of a standard socket set.
Right. To remove a standard anode rod, you're going to need to pick up a 1 1/16 inch socket, and you may need another size for the powered anode rod. So check that before you start your project.
Right.
And you can check out our episode called Socket Wrenches for some socket wrench tips.
Great name. What are some features to look for in a powered anode rod?
Compare the length of the power cord. Check how many gallons it protects. What type of monitoring or alert features does it have to let you know that it's working? Compare the warranty and check what type of help support they have. Check that it'll work with your water heater, or do they have a kit for unique setups? Like with the Bradford White water heaters or some A.O. Smith water heaters, there isn't a separate opening for an anode rod. They use an anode rod that's attached to the pipe on the water outlet. Coro Protec says they have a kit for water heaters like this. It comes with a T-fitting for the hot water outlet, so you can connect to the hot water pipes, and the powered anode rod can be inserted into the tank.
Okay. If the water heater has 2 anode rods, do you just replace one with a powered anode rod?
Yes, and the powered anode rod will protect the second anode rod, so you don't need to check it or replace it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
If you install a powered anode rod and then the water heater has to be replaced, can you remove the powered anode rod from the old water heater and put it in the new water heater?
Yeah, Coro Protec says their product can be removed and installed into a new water heater, but check the model that you have.
Okay. Do you still have to drain the water heater tank regularly with a powered anode rod?
Yeah, you should always follow the maintenance instructions for your water heater. For most, you want to drain it at least once a year. There's going to be less sediment with a powered anode rod, but draining it routinely can help your tank last longer.
Okay. Can you install a powered anode rod on an old water heater? Does the age of the tank matter?
Coro Protec says it depends on the quality of your water. If your water heater normally lasts only 5 years or so because you have very corrosive water, installing a powered anode rod at year 4 isn't going to do a great job. But with city water, a tank can last over 15 years, and it will benefit from the protection of a powered anode rod, even if it's older than 10 years.
Okay.
So it's going to stop the internal tank corrosion. It's not going to repair any damage that's already done,
Right.
but it's going to stop it there.
Oh, that's good. What are some top-rated powered anode rod companies?
Coro Protec, it's C-O-R-R-O, capital P-R-O-T-E-C. A.O. Smith, it's capital A, capital O, capital S-M-I-T-H. Stoltco, it's S-T-O-L-T-C-O. And Fix Odor, it's F-I-X, capital O-D-O-R.
Do you have anything else to add?
Checking the anode rod is something every homeowner should be doing routinely. If you don't, it's going to shorten the life of your water heater. And putting in a powered anode rod will extend the life of your water heater. It helps reduce hard water deposits. It gets rid of sulfur smell, and there's no maintenance required. We'd like to thank Vince from Coro Protec for helping us with some information for this episode.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 18 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fix It Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.